Today we're going to talk about how one church planter pivoted during COVID and launched his church anyways, even though his entire area was shut down. What did he do? Find out in a minute because it's time.
You're listening to the Church Digital Sidekick Podcast, part of the TCD Podcast Network.
Hey heroes, my name is Tom Pounder and this is the Church Digital Sidekick Podcast. This is the podcast where I bring on ministry leaders and we talk about how to do ministry more effectively in this very digital and online world. And today I have Jared Nassiff on, and Jared is a church planter who at the beginning of 2020, he was going to launch his church in person, in real life, in person. And then COVID happened. Yeah, I know, we've heard that story a lot. You were going to do this, and then COVID happened and it changed everything. Well, it did change everything, but Jared still launched his church, and his church is still going on right now, and they have a digital component and an in-person component. And so today we get to discuss how he pivoted and how he used digital tools and online tools to still launch his church and still minister to his community during COVID. So what did that look like? We're going to talk about that today. But before we get into that, I do want to highlight the Church Digital. At the Church Digital, we have a lot of different resources and help and support for people who are looking to do ministry more effectively. And we have some online help. We have some mental help. We have digital stuff. We have coaching cohorts and also one-on-one coaching that we'd love for you to check out. And we have a number of different podcasts as well. So if you just go to thechurch.digital right now, you can find out all the different resources, all the different coaching and equipping that we help you do at the Church Digital. All right, everyone. Now let's get into our conversation with Jared, talking about how he launched his church in the midst of COVID with digital. All right, with me right now is Jared Nassiff. Jared, how are you, man?
I'm good, Tom. How are you, buddy? Thanks for having me on.
Hey, man, it's great. And again, as we were talking before I hit record, you and I met through Passion for Planting, and we actually then got to meet. We met online, but then we got to meet in person at Exponential. So that was really fun.
Yeah, it's been a much of like what the church planting experience has been. Is really just meeting people online, and then maybe somewhere down the road you might get to meet them in person. And for our situation, it was a little different, like yours and mine, because we met online, and then the plan was originally to meet in person before we co-taught this workshop at Exponential together.
Yep.
And then again, much like church planting, my plans did not go that as I originally thought, and ended up walking into the workshop we were teaching like 10 minutes late. And so didn't even get to meet you until after we were done teaching together. So whatever, it all worked out though.
It all worked out. It was great. And I hope to have these conversations some more, but because your story is awesome and we're going to get into your story. But before we get into what you did and how you planted your church, give people a quick background about, where you're at and, how you went down this process of planting a church.
Oh man. We are in me, my wife, and our 3 kids, Naomi, who is 4, Wrigley, she's 2, and Ezra is 4, he's 14 months old. And so all our kids are pretty young. Yeah. And we live now in Des Moines, Iowa. Well, we actually live in Urbandale, which is like a suburb just on the other side of the Des Moines proper line. But yeah, we live in the Des Moines metro area, and we moved here. And we moved in kind of in the very beginning of 2020. And so moved at the beginning of 2020, eager, excited, had all these plans to plant a church. Passion for Planting was helping us prepare and dream and pray over this church plan. We came with this excitement that we're going to plant a new church and bring a lot of people to Christ and build community and have relationships. It's going to be awesome. And then a month later, the world was like, "Nah, we got other plans for you." So we're in the Des Moines area. We moved. I've been in vocational ministry all of my career at established settings, and was actually at a church in Indiana for about 4 or 5 years, where I was in conversations with the eldership there about possibly someday succeeding the current lead pastor as he was preparing to retire. And so we were in this year-long season of praying, my wife and I, over that decision. Do we stay where we are and succeed the lead pastor? I think this is where God's leading. And then over that year of praying, in moments of fasting, God made it real clear to us through, that's a whole nother story in of itself of how God called us into this. But I've truly never felt more called to anything in my life than planting this church,
Wow.
which, side note, is truly the only reason we are still planting this church today.
Wow.
Because of these last 2 years, nothing else we have to lean back on except for this calling that we firmly believe God has placed before us to plant this church, and at this time and in this location.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah, it's where we're at right now.
Well, man, that's exciting. That's encouraging to hear the story too of, just you praying and fasting. And on a side note of just the fact that all throughout history, it seems like when God does amazing things and when God's really moving, people are fasting and praying and they're able to hear the voice of the Lord and really go clearly in a direction, even in the midst of a pandemic. I mean, it would have been probably so easy for you to pack up and say, we're not doing this. We can't do this, but God's calling is in it. So you guys continue.
Yeah, exactly. There's been several moments where it's like, man, do we look for another job? Do we leave ministry altogether? Like, other 40% of other pastors have considered, and so, but it always comes back to that. No, God 6 different times made it very clear to us. This is where we need to be. This is where we need to go. So that's what we hang on.
Okay, so let's get into the process of you actually starting this church.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did you go through the Passion for Planting program? Was that 2019 into 2020, or what was that?
I was in the cohort. I started in the fall of 2019. Okay. And went in through the spring of 2020, I believe. And alongside that, I had left the church I was at in the fall of 2019. So I stepped away in September of 19. And then my wife and I and our family took the next 4 or 5 months to travel. And we were given this opportunity to, not through Passion for Planting, but we're given this opportunity to go and visit and see other church plants. And so every 1 to 2 weeks, we spent time with another church plant all over the nation. Wow. At different stages of the life of the church. So we saw church in Rhode Island and in Mesa, Arizona, and in Champaign, Illinois, and Rochester, Minnesota, all like one that are just getting launched or pre-launched or 10 years old, everywhere in between. Yeah. So we were given the season to like kind of be trained up and look at like these different examples and models and learn from experiences that are out there, because we didn't know what the heck we were doing trying to plant a church. Yeah. So we're trying to figure out how other people are doing it, what we can learn from them. And then in the very beginning, January, February of 2020, we became boots on the ground in the Des Moines area, and initially moved in with my parents live in Ankeny. They're in northern suburbs. So as we looked for home, we thought our stuff's going to be in storage as we travel. When we're back in Des Moines, we'll move in with them for like a month, shoot to maybe like look for a house or something, and really get to work on building community. And so that was, very beginning of the year 2020, January 2020. And then, a month and a half later, NBA shuts down. The rest of the world follows suit because of this COVID, this pandemic. And we truly did not know at all what to make of this. And at that time, we had 3 families that had, or 3 households that had like transplanted with us, really, from Indiana to help plant this church. And so, and they had moved to the Des Moines area at this time. So we have these like really 12 people with us, and me and my family to try to launch this church. Pandemic hits and we go, man, what do we do? Yeah. We really started panicking, started like, okay, how long is this going to last? Maybe we just write it out for a little bit, what is this going to look like? And so, as we began talking through what to do, as it became more real that like this isn't going away anytime soon, we really said like what we're planning on doing isn't going to work. And but just because there is a pandemic doesn't mean we just stop trying to start a new church.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we just stop trying to tell people about Jesus.
Right.
And because that's why we wanted to plant a church in the first place. So
Well, let me ask you this question real quick. Before the pandemic hit, did you have a launch date that you were planning on launching?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Our original plan was October 11th, 2020.
okay.
Yep. That was the original goal, was to plant this church, Sunday morning services, October 11th, 2020. And we were, working with Passion for Planting to kind of do like, we had this vision of kind of doing this like hybrid small group and traditional service model kind of thing, where, we're going to gather on Sunday mornings, but we're going to be heavily based on disciple making, especially in our small groups, and so that's what our plan was as a whole. So.
Okay, so you had a launch date, and now that the pandemic has hit. So what starts to change as you're going through it? You're realizing it's not going to be just a week or 2 weeks. We're not going to be back by Easter, as some were hoping that we'd be. So how did your mind shift change, and what did you guys do to adapt?
Yeah, so we had not made any like rash decisions yet, major decisions on let's push a launch date back, let's throw everything out. What we did was we said, hey, we don't know truly when this is going to end, if at all, what's it going to look like. All we know right now is everyone's terrified to be around other people or be in public. Everyone's just staying in their homes, so we literally can't go anywhere. Like, we're all even in the same city and area, but we still wouldn't gather. Right at the very beginning of COVID, no one went anywhere, right? You all stayed under house arrest, and for the most part. And so we just started meeting through, the upper Zoom, right? And started meeting through that and just talking about, so what do we do? So I posed the question to our team, how do we do everything that a church or a church plant could or should be doing, but do it digitally or online?
That's cool.
Right. And so I just posed that question, how everything a church could possibly do in person, how do you do that online? From like, take just your Sunday morning experience, for example, like parking lot, coming into the front door, coffee, like welcome, you receive gifts and hugs, and there's name tags, and people welcoming you to find a seat, and there's slides up on the screen ahead of time, and there's music playing, and then there's a band and announcements, and then teaching and communion, offer everything that goes through it. So we just started going like, well, we could do that. And then what about outside of Sunday? What about everything the church does, from their discipleship training stuff to their kids ministry programming, to the events that are built around building community, to outreach and community service and trying to meet the needs of our area? Like, we just started going, how do we, everything the church could be doing, how do we do that online? And so we started filling in, and we don't have all the answers even to today, but we started filling in some of those things. Like, well, what are some of the things we could do right now to do that very thing? And so we started talking about, well, we could really some like main categories is, one, do some kind of worship experience online, do some kind of gathering digitally for people, so they're not just completely isolated from everyone else. We could do some small groups, figure out how to use Zoom or Google Meet to do some small group stuff. And and then how do we meet the needs of others at this time and place? How do we serve other people when you're not really allowed to be around people, And so we tried figuring out what some of the answers to those kind of things would be. So we took our launch date, we kept it on October 20th, or October 11th in person. But then we said, maybe rather than just kind of leading up to that, maybe we just start doing some of this stuff right now in the digital space. And then we get closer to October, we add in Sunday morning in person. So we said, let's try something online. So we decided to set a launch date, and we launched an online service in June, beginning of June 2020. So like several months before our in-person launch date, which was still yet to come later that fall. And so we built that up. We marketed it online. We started doing hosting in-home watch parties. And so it kind of trained up our people, the people we had, to say, hey, your neighborhood, where you guys are living, get to know those people, the ones closest to you. Start inviting them to your homes on Sunday mornings or later in the week to watch this service that we pre-recorded, posted online. And it's going to be designed for watch parties. So that's kind of what we went through with our focus of our online services, the watch party in mind, and told our people, invite your neighbors and then tell them, like, we're going to, the model we're going to kind of follow, the structure we're going to follow is worship, prayer together, sharing a meal. So like, you guys are responsible for, like, let's do lunch together and pray together and watch a service and worship together. So it's kind of the three things we put in front of our people and just say, hey, you're kind of just facilitating here, allow the Spirit to do the leading through your community, through your fellowship, through the service online, through all this kind of stuff. And so it was a really unique season of the life of the church, from June to, well, for a while, of doing just online in-person watch parties, just kind of worshiping online together.
Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit more, because this is great and it's fascinating to me. Because what I hear you talk about is the word, the phygital word. You got the physical, you got the watch party, you're meeting in person, and you've got that online component. So talk to me about a little bit about your online component. You pre-recorded it. Where did you post it? And let's talk about the experience. Like, was it like an hour-long service? Was it 20 minutes, 30 minutes? Like, what did that look like for your watch parties?
Yeah, no, we all great questions. When we talked about just the online service, we thought if we do it just how you do it in person, it would feel like it may not like garner as much effectiveness or momentum. And since everyone and their brother knows nobody's meeting in person, don't pretend that you're in person while people are watching online. So they just like own it and be like, yeah, hey, we're all at home right now watching this together. So that's kind of the mindset we went in, is kind of cater this to the like watching from your couch experience, for a while. And so with that, we thought, man, when I'm watching something on Facebook, it's rarely I don't often watch like songs or singing or those kind of things. Like, usually it's some kind of content that whether it's a TED talk or a sermon or someone's teaching me something, or podcast. Like, it's usually something I'm trying, like, the reason I'm streaming something is for the benefit that I might be able to gain some knowledge or something from it, might challenge me, like help me grow in a certain area. So we thought, this is what people, if they're going to watch it, that's what they're looking for. And so we actually kind of reversed how most people would do a service. And we still included music and song and that kind of thing. But we usually put that toward the second half of the service. So the service itself usually started with a person that was kind of an online host that just very well was like, hey, so glad they're joining us here, even from, wherever you're watching, the car, the couch, your shower, whatever it is, welcome, just kind of being very friendly, like someone normally would in person, but talking directly to the camera, right? Much like I'm talking directly to the camera right now, and then would go straight into, they would kind of set up the morning. They would explain, like, again, just like an in-person service, explain where we're going to be in our study today, some announcements that are helpful to keep in mind. You grab some communion and offering, just kind of help prepare people. And then we'd go right into the teaching. And so that would really be the start of that service, would be the teaching. And we would not go past like 20 minutes. I think there was a while back, there was a book that came out about how to talk like Ted or something like that. And they said the average adult attention span for something like that is 18 minutes max. So we tried keeping it around that ballpark, especially when it's online. The longer something is, right? We all know this, the less shelf life is going to have, or effectiveness is going to have. And so we kept those pretty short, and then went into a few songs or a video or whatever else might be included in that service. And then usually concluded with the outro host as well, just thanking watch parties, enjoy the meal together. We'll see you next week, or share this with your friends. Here's some other tidbits. So yeah, it was a pretty simple service, but all really created with the mindset of the in-home watch parties.
Did you encourage all the watch parties to happen at the exact same time, or according to what's best for that particular home?
According to what's best for that particular home. Okay. Yeah, what they could do. And so I think all of ours did do Sundays, but I believe one or two may have met in the evenings rather than in the morning or something. So, but we posted it live. I can't remember. It was either 10 or 11 a.m. on a Sunday. And that way they could watch together and then do lunch together too in their homes. So
That's awesome. And so how many watch parties did you kind of start with when you kicked it off?
Yeah, I think at very first we started with like 3. I mean, we only had 12 people, from the very beginning of just going, how about you guys? This is what we're going to do in our neighborhoods. We're just going to reach our neighborhoods. That's where we are. That's what we can do, So let's start there. So that's kind of where it began. So.
And so, okay, so let's walk this through a little bit more now. So you started with the watch parties and you doing this service together. What else did you do, or what kind of training did you offer to help with this as well?
Yeah, we did core team trainings, right? And we did core. I can't remember if we did bi-weekly or every week. I feel like we did bi-weekly trainings all the way up through our in-person service, and would do or once a month trainings at different seasons, because our pre-launch phase was much longer than we expected it to be because of COVID, right? So we kind of changed gears sometimes, but we did these trainings all via Zoom or Google Meet until we could start meeting in person. So like later in the fall here in Iowa, we could start meeting in person.
Okay.
We were able to start actually doing some in-person stuff like I think September.
Okay.
Maybe October might have been our very first like in-person kind of vision gathering thing, but it really wasn't as long as a lot of the nation or most of the world had been locked down on. And so, we started the watch parties, but then we did some team training stuff, walked them through different discipleship tools that myself or another pastor, another leader has been challenged or encouraged by, or has been helpful for us. We taught the 3 circles. We taught the blind man story from John. I once was blind, now I see. So what's your kind of cardboard testimony? We just talk a couple of different tools that Passion for Planting gave us, ways to love your neighbors. We talked about how I gave them, I can't remember what it was, but I gave them the how to go from curiosity to community during COVID. So like the 3 C's of the pandemic, how to go from curiosity to community to during COVID. And we talked through what that can look like practically in their lives. And used online as best we could to help train people up to do that.
See, that's awesome, because again, I think it could have been really easy for you to say, okay, well, we just can't launch right now. We're just in this period. We just can't do anything. But you said, no, we can do stuff. And you used digital stuff. You used online. You were doing services, watch parties. Yes. These are things that like established churches were doing. You weren't even established yet. Right. And utilizing this. And this is like so encouraging. So how did this help you then set the pace for meeting in person for your very first? Were you able to launch in October when you wanted to, or did that get pushed back a little bit?
That's a kind of a crazy story, completely a God thing as well. We had been praying as a leadership team this was end of July, 1st of August. We've been praying like, God, what do we do? Do we still shoot for October? Like that's coming up quick. Mm-hmm. We don't feel ready. Still the world doesn't feel ready. So like, what do we do? And eventually, like after seeking wise counsel and talking with our management team and some even Passion for Planting people, I remember one guy from Passion for Planting told me we are the only church plant he knows that was still shooting to launch in person in 2020. And from there, we're like, okay, maybe there's something to looking at pushing back our launch date, right? Yeah. And so we had decided as a full leadership team to push our launch date back. And we just asked, we said, God, if this is the right decision, please confirm that. If it's not, change that drastically, like you did with Paul from telling him not to go to a city, and make that clear to us, and we'll continue to launch in person. That coming weekend, okay, several things happened. One was I got a call from the president of the company we were renting space from. So we had a physical location in 2020. This is how much Iowa didn't really care as much. Like we weren't as progressive as Texas and Florida and Missouri were with the pandemic, but Iowa was a close second, right? Yeah. And so we had a physical location. We were meeting there, doing some in-person gatherings in the fall. And then all of a sudden we get this call from this president out of nowhere. Had a great relationship with him, and he goes, hey, I want to catch you up on something. He goes, we've been locked in this court battle with our property owners, and they said that we can no longer allow anything in the space that isn't business related, because it was inside of a business park.
Okay.
And so they said, we have to kick you out. What? So we just lost our space to meet just like that, right? An hour after that conversation, I get a call from what was expected to be our next worship pastor. We had been interviewing this person, and that person had gone through all of the process. Everyone gave that person a green light. An hour later, that person calls me and says, hey, I have no idea why this is the case, but the Spirit is telling me not to come.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, the Spirit was telling me you should be coming. So what's happening here? And, but anyway, so that happened like that next hour. Later that night, I get a call from our associate pastor, and he goes, hey, this is kind of crazy, but the place that he was holding a men's small group on Thursday nights, they were starting to meet in person. He goes, that place they were meeting at was this large restaurant and bar, just burnt to the ground. It's not there today. It's just a vacant lot today as we're speaking. It literally burnt all the way. The whole thing burnt to the ground. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I was like, okay, this has to be the Lord. We asked, we got to trust he's answering. Yeah. I guess this was the right decision to move it back. Not how we expected something like positive to move it back.
Right. That's what I was expecting you to share something positive. Yeah.
Yeah. No. That's not how it went. God confirmed it. Not how we expected, much like this whole church planning story for us from the get-go. But so we knew, we're going to push our launch date back, and we chose the weekend before Easter of 2021. So Palm Sunday, March 28th, 2021. Actually, as you and I are doing this podcast right now, we're 2 Sundays away from that date for our 1-year birthday and of in-person services, which is kind of crazy. So,
okay. So I guess you just continue to do online, right? I mean, you're just continuing to invest in online.
Yep. We've continued to do online today. Never missed a Sunday.
That's awesome. And so how has your online impact changed as you have moved in? So, because it's really natural for you to say, okay, we're in person now. Let's just bail on some of these things. What are you doing now, and how has it changed your online component?
Yeah, very pragmatically, we used to pre-record and then edit and post it. And now when we went in person, we continued to do that for a few months. And that was burning our people out. That was a ton of work with the minimum hands we had. If you have all the resources, sure, awesome, go for it. But we knew like this is not really sustainable for what we have right now. And so we decided to work toward an actual live service. Because as far as I can tell, there's not really much science out there, not too many stats out there, unless you can share some with me, Tom, that kind of shows like pre-recorded is way better than live, or live is way better than pre-recorded. So kind of just left it up to our decision to go, let's move toward live, stop pre-recording. And so we took our time to actually get our live service to a place of at least equal or better quality than what we could do by pre-recording, because we didn't want to just drop the quality of what we were doing pre-recording in order to give like a little break, but we knew we needed to work toward that. So and so now today where it stands is it's live, right? And but it's completely common for all of our people on stage to just simply address or talk to those online as if they're here in the room with us. And so you'll see from our host, the front of the service, to our worship people, to myself or another pastor preaching, like regularly, we look straight at the camera, just like we used to pre-record, and just talk to the person watching who may never step foot here inside this space or with this people, but they've been watching every week, and we want them to know, hey, we view you as a part of this community. So
that's awesome. And are you still doing online groups? I mean, is that a part of your, small group strategy?
Well, not right now. I don't think there's any online groups that are meeting currently today. But it was for a while. It was ongoing. We actually had a lady in our church, a girl in our church who hopped on this like Des Moines Moms group, and Des Moines Moms Facebook group, and just posted, hey, anybody interested in community and studying the Bible together, and asking questions and studying those together. And she got a good response of women that joined. And so she had 7 or 8 ladies that were meeting via Zoom for a long time, studying the Bible together from all over the Des Moines area. And so, which was super cool. A mix of people who go to church and those who don't. Yeah. Mix of people who are just really just needing and desiring relationship, which if anything, this pandemic has highlighted to the nth degree of how dire and necessary real, authentic, intimate relationships are. And so, I don't think as of today we have any online groups, but we have for the vast majority of the life of this church.
That's awesome. Well, that's good. I mean, again, it changes from time to time. We were all online, and then as we became in person more, a lot of our online groups went back to in person, but we still kept a good amount of online groups, and there's still some online discipleship that is happening. Again, to each their own. I love hearing your story of how you were able to launch your church purely digital, and that really helped to feed into your ultimate launch that happened on Easter 2021.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it created, there were so many pros to it, but there will always be cons to it as well. Like one, not really a con, but something that we kind of have had to try to wade through and figure out is because we launched completely online and then moved to gathering in person, or include that alongside what we're doing online. Because we started online, we started gathering people, collecting people kind of all over the Des Moines metro. And so when it came time to meet in person, it became a difficult question. Well, where do we meet? We have families on the east side and the west side and downtown and north and south. Where do we meet? People are going to be driving 20, 30 minutes wherever we meet. So what do we do? And so that became kind of a challenge, a thing to figure out. But it's also exciting because right now I feel like because of that, God has already started creating future core teams as we seek to be a church that's planting churches all over the Des Moines area. Actually, we already have a family coming from there. We already have a couple of families coming from this side. So it's pretty cool.
And I'm glad you said that because I want to hit on your 2020 vision. Tell me about your 2020 vision.
Yeah, we believe God has put in front of us what we've called the 2020 vision. And that stands for starting in 2020, which is where we started the church in the year 2020, to plant 20 churches in 20 years. 20 churches in 20 years. And that kind of vision took different shapes as we kind of went maybe it's something we're supposed to be shooting for 20 churches starting in 2020. But then once I felt there were nights I couldn't sleep wrestling with this, can we do this? This seems too big. And, I've never done something like this. I don't even know how to plant one church, let alone 20, and, but then when it came to this moment of putting I feel like God just said hey, put a time frame on it. You're limiting me, if you don't put a time limit on it, you're going to spend 20 years and you're not going to get a single church planted. Put a time limit on it. Give yourself this. And so we did. And then there was another pastor online that I remember I was watching, and he, at the very same time we were just trying to iron this vision out, he said, if the vision you feel like God has given you doesn't scare or overwhelm you, then it's probably not a vision from the Lord. Yeah. And it was at that moment that I realized, okay, this is from God, because I don't know how the heck you're supposed to do any of this.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, man. Well, that's exciting. And seriously, I love your vision, and I love it. And I love what you just said about how if it wasn't for that online, you're already hitting different parts of Des Moines that you probably wouldn't have been able to hit if it wasn't for starting and launching online. And God is planting seeds. And I think God's going to do some great things with you as you continue to nurture that. So this has been an awesome story to hear. So as we kind of wrap up here, how would you encourage a church planter, especially in regards to the digital component of it? What would you encourage them to do based on your experience?
Yeah, I would say do your research to figure out how to be online. Don't figure out if, but figure out how, because online is where everyone is. Back in the day, you could get to try to meet people, you go to where they are. And that used to be in different spots, and you could go to a church and meet people. You could go to the gym and meet people. You could go to the grocery store and meet people. You could go downtown or to the park and meet people. Today, everyone is online. That's where they are. So go to where the people are, right? When Jesus started his ministry, he went to where the people were. And so that's my encouragement, is to do that and do it well. Even if your personal preference is, I don't know, I'm all against online stuff. It's so fake. People don't have to be real. You can't really build real relationships with the community. Like, you know what, man, we have seen this time and time again be a bridge to bring people into relationship with the church and ultimately, therefore, with Jesus. And so I think it's an incredible tool, and it's a tool I think that has and can and will and be used for bad, for evil, but that I firmly believe the Lord can and wants to restore it, to redeem it. And so why not do that through you as a church planter, to use the online space to be a voice, to bring people into relationship with Christ, to build relationships and get people into community, when a lot of times the only sense of like belonging and worth is from their online profile. So why not be a community that's going to find those people and go, hey, let's introduce you to others that can walk alongside you in the direction of Jesus. And so get online, do your research, do it well, figure out what kind of gear you might need as cheap as you can find it. Don't wait till it's perfect. If you wait till whatever you have and trying to do, you wait till it's perfect, you're never going to get up there. You're not going to be able to start like those mega churches that have incredible online experiences. Do something and do it consistently, because this is where people are. And this is the only time in history that you can literally reach people all over the world, from all different kinds of religions and cults and backgrounds and stories, all from your basement. And so it's pretty incredible opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I love what you just said too. All of it. I love what you just said. But the one where you said it doesn't need to be polished. I think the one thing that we've discovered over the pandemic is, you can start something with just a simple smartphone, and you can just start doing that from your basement. Like you said, you can get cheap equipment on Amazon. It's easy to get started. People are more forgiving. It doesn't need to be polished, and so they just want to see authenticity and realness. So I think it's awesome.
Polish it as you go. Yeah, for sure.
Hey, Jared, how can someone connect with you if they got questions? Where can they connect with you? Social media or anything?
Yeah, I do Facebook and Instagram. Feel free to connect with me. Send me a friend request, send me a DM, whatever. Let's connect and talk and celebrate what Christ is doing in your guys' stories as well. Just my name, Jared Nassiff. My email is jared@directionchurch.com, JARED@directionchurch.com. It's also our church website, right? www.directionchurch.com. And so those are some easy ways to get connected with me too. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And in case people missed it, I will have all those links in the show notes. And so definitely check out his website and then connect with him online. That would be great. Jared, thanks, man.
Thank you, Tom, for allowing me to be part of this. I love looking back on our story as a church plant and being able to celebrate and glorify what God has done. Because a lot of what we feel like we've tried didn't work. And the reason we're still here today is because of the work of the Holy Spirit. And so thank you for allowing me to come and celebrate that, boast in that, if you will.
Yeah, that's awesome, Jared. I loved hearing your story at Exponential. And again, loved hearing it today too. So This is great. We will talk some more a little bit later.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Tom. Thanks, man.
All right. So it was awesome having Jared on there. It was great. We met on digital before Exponential, and then as we talked about, we met in person at Digital with Passion for Planting. Okay, so and if you want to learn more about Passion for Planting, they are a great church planting resource and support, and they help you launch your church more effectively. So if you're a church planter and you're looking for help, go to the church planting links that I have in the show notes today. But I want to hear from you. What encouraged you from listening to Jared and I talk? What challenged you? What made you think differently? How can this help you today? Again, we're kind of out of this COVID stuff right now. We're still in person, but we don't want to lose sight of the digital stuff. So how did what Jared do encourage you? Let's share with it online. You can go to Twitter @TA_Pounder. That's where I'm at, and let's carry this conversation on, or you can just simply email me at tapounder@gmail.com. I would love to talk to you a little bit more about that. All right, heroes. Well, thanks so much for being with me today. As always, you can go to YouTube and subscribe to this channel. We'd love for you to do that. Or you can go to iTunes and Spotify and subscribe to this as well. I've got new podcasts coming out every single week with ministry leaders as we're looking to do ministry more effectively in this very digital and online world. So I hope you're able to check that out and subscribe to it today. And again, as always, go to thechurch.digital for tons of different resources and help and encouragement. All right, heroes, well, I hope you have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your week, and until next time, have a great one.